Hello, my babies. Welcome to another week and another read. We started last week reading the writings of Florence Schovel Shinn. We got a large response from this, so I think we're going to have to speed this book up so we can get to the next. But last week's chapter was on, the first chapter was on the game of life and how to play it. And it spoke on the power of the word and the word or your voice being radioactive. If you want to check that out, you can go back to my Facebook page and don't just look at part 2, chapter 1, part 2. Go back because it's 2 parts. And a lot of you have only seen the second part where I came back and continued. So take your time, go back. Check out chapter 1, part 1. So moving on to chapter 2. And chapter 2 is so delicious. Let's get to it. Chapter 2 is called The Law of Prosperity. And at the beginning of each chapter, which is why I love this book, it's not just a metaphysics book, because what is metaphysics? Metaphysics is just science being the language to describe the spiritual realm that could never be given words that would create human understanding. So that's why I love this book, because it keeps biblical references, but it gives you a broad and brilliant understanding of the words that sometimes we are just, once we walk into a synagogue, we're given words, but no true understanding of them. And a conviction to not even ask what these words and the meanings of them are. Okay? So here we go. The law of prosperity. Yea, the Almighty shall be thy defense, and thou shalt have plenty of silver. One of the greatest messages given to the race through the scriptures is that God is man's supply, and that man can release through his spoken word all that belongs to him by divine right. He must, however, have perfect faith in his spoken word. Isaiah said, "My word shall not return unto me void, but shall accomplish that whereunto it is sent." We know now that words and thoughts are a tremendous vibratory force, ever molding man's body and affairs. A woman came to me in great distress and said she was to be sued on the 15th of the month for $3,000. She knew no way of getting the money and was in despair. I told her God was her supply and that there is a supply for every demand. So I spoke the word. I gave thanks that the woman would receive $3,000 at the right time in the right way. I told her she must have perfect faith and act her perfect faith. The 15th came, but no money had materialized. She called me on the phone and asked what she was to do. I replied, "It is Saturday, so they won't sue you today. Your part is to act rich, thereby showing perfect faith that you will receive it by Monday." She asked me to lunch with her to keep up her courage. When I joined her at the restaurant, I said, "This is no time to economize. Order an expensive luncheon. Act as if you have already received the $3,000. Although, all things whatsoever ye ask in prayer, believing, ye shall receive." So you must act as if you had it already received. The next morning, she called me on the phone and asked me to stay with her during the day. I said, "No, you are divinely protected and God is never too late." In the evening, she phoned again, greatly excited, and said, "My dear, a miracle has happened. I was sitting in my room this morning when the doorbell rang. I said to the maid, 'Don't let anyone in.' The maid, however, looked out the window and said, 'It's your cousin with the long white beard.' So I said, call him back. I would like to see him. He was just turning the corner when he heard the maid's voice and he came back. He talked for about an hour, and just as he was leaving, he said, oh, by the way, how are your finances? I told him I needed the money, and he said, why, my dear, I will give you $3,000 the first of the month. I didn't like to tell him I was going to be sued. What shall I do? I won't receive it till the first of the month, and I must have it tomorrow, I said. I'll keep treating, I said. Spirit is never too late. I give thanks she has received the money on the invisible plane and that it manifests on time. The next morning, her cousin called her up and said, come to my office this morning and I will give you the money. That afternoon, she had $3,000 to her credit in the bank and wrote checks as rapidly as her excitement would permit. If one acts for success and prepares for failure, he will get the situation he has prepared for. For example, a man came to me asking me to speak the word that a certain debt would be wiped out. I found he spent his time planning what he would say to the man when he did not pay his bill, thereby neutralizing my words. He should have seen himself paying the debt. I'm going to repeat that. I found he spent his time planning what he would say to the man when he did not pay his bill, thereby neutralizing my words. He should have seen himself paying the bill. We have a wonderful illustration of this in the Bible, relating to the 3 kings who were in the desert without water for their men and horses. They consulted the prophet Elijah, who gave them this astonishing message. Thus saith the Lord, ye shall not see wind, neither shall ye see rain, yet make this valley full of ditches. Man must prepare for the thing he has asked for, when there isn't the slightest sign of it. For example, a woman found it necessary to look for an apartment during the year when there was a great shortage of apartments in New York. It was considered almost an impossibility, and her friends were sorry for her and said, isn't it too bad? You'll have to store your furniture and live in a hotel. I don't know why I always choose that accent, but nevertheless. It's too bad you'll have to store your furniture and live in a hotel, she replied. She replied, you needn't feel sorry for me. I'm a Superman and I'll get an apartment. If anybody know me, those who think I'm crazy, this is what I'm talking about. They be like, okay, and bam, give God time to work in my spiritual patience, and you'll see what I prayed for. Back to the book. She spoke the words, infinite spirit, open the way for the right apartment. She knew there was a supply for every demand, and that she was unconditioned, working on the spiritual plane, and that one with God is a majority. She had contemplated buying new blankets when the tempter, your inner convictor, your inner unbeliever, the tempter, I love that. Again, she had contemplated buying new blankets when the tempter, the adverse thought or reasoning mind, suggested, don't buy the blankets. Perhaps after all you won't even get the apartment and you will have to use them, and you will have no use for them. She promptly replied to herself, I'll dig my ditches by buying the blankets. So she prepared the apartment, acted as though she already had it. She found one in a miraculous way, and it was given to her, although there were over 200 other applicants. The blankets showed active faith. It is needless to say that the ditches dug by the 3 kings in the desert were filled to overflowing. Read 2 Kings Getting into the spiritual swing of things is no easy matter for the average person. The adverse thoughts of doubt and fear surge from the subconscious. They are the army of the aliens, which must be put to flight. This explains why it is so often darkest before the dawn. A big demonstration is usually preceded by tormenting thoughts. Having made a statement of high spiritual truth, one challenges the old beliefs in the subconscious, and error is exposed to be put out. This is the time when one must make his affirmations of truth repeatedly and rejoice and give thanks that he has already received before he has already received. And the word says, before ye call, I shall answer. This means that every good, perfect gift is already man's awaiting his recognition. Let me repeat that. This means that every good and perfect gift is already man's, awaiting his recognition. That hit my body, that hit my soul. I like it. Man can only receive what he sees himself receiving. The children of Israel were told that they could have all the land they could see. This is true of every man. He has only the land within his own mental vision. Every great work, every big accomplishment has been brought into manifestation through holding to the vision. And often, just before the big achievement comes apparent failure and discouragement. The children of Israel, when they reached the promised land, were afraid to go in, for they said it was filled with giants who made them feel like grasshoppers. And there we saw the giants, and we were in our own sight as grasshoppers. This is almost every man's experience. However, the one who knows spiritual law is undisturbed by appearances and rejoices while he is yet in captivity. That is, he holds to his vision and gives thanks that the end is accomplished. He has received. Jesus Christ gave a wonderful example of this. He said to his disciples, "Say not ye, there are yet 4 months, and then cometh the harvest? Behold, I say unto you, lift up your eyes and look on the fields, for they are ripe already to harvest." His clear vision pierced the world of matter, and he saw clearly the fourth dimensional world, things as they really are, perfect and complete in divine mind. So man must ever hold the vision of his journey's end and demand the manifestation of that which he has already received. It may be his perfect health, love, supply, self-expression, home, or friends. They are all finished and perfect ideas registered in divine mind, man's own superconscious mind, and must come through him, not to him. For example, a man came to me asking for treatments for success. It was imperative that he raise within a certain time $50,000 for his business. The time limit was almost up when he came to me in despair. No one wanted to invest in his enterprise, and the bank had flatly refused a loan. I replied, "I suppose you lost your temper while at the bank, therefore your power. You can control any situation if you first control yourself. Go back to the bank," I added, "and I will treat." My treatment was, you are identified in love with the spirit of everyone connected with the bank. Let the divine idea come out of this situation. He replied, "Woman, you are talking about an impossibility. Tomorrow's Saturday. The bank closes at 12, and my train won't get me there until 10. And the time limit is up tomorrow, and anyway, they won't do it. It's too late. It's too late. I replied, God doesn't need any time and is never too late. With him, all things are possible. I added, I don't know anything about business, but I know all about God. He replied, it all sounds fine when I sit here listening to you, but when I go out, it's terrible. He lived in a distant city, and I did not hear from him for a week. Then came a letter. It read, you were right. I raised the money, and I will never again doubt the truth of all that you told me. I saw him a few weeks later, and I said, so what happened? You evidently had plenty of time. After all. He replied, my train was late. I got there just 15 minutes to 12. I walked into the bank quietly and said, I have come for the loan. And they gave it to me without a question. It was the last 15 minutes of the time allotted to him, and Infinite Spirit was not too late. In this instance, the man could never have demonstrated alone. He needed a faith partner. He needed someone to help him hold on to the vision. This is what one man can do for another. Jesus Christ knew the truth of this when he said, if two of you shall agree on earth as touching anything that they shall ask, it shall be done for them of my Father which is in heaven. One gets too close to his own affairs and becomes doubtful and fearful. The friend or healer sees clearly the success, health, or prosperity and never wavers because he is not close to the situation. It is much easier to demonstrate for someone else than for oneself. So a person should not hesitate to ask for help if he feels himself wavering. A keen observer of life once said, no man can fail if some one person sees him successful. Such is the power of the vision, and many a great man has owed his success to a wife or a sister or a friend or who believed in him and held without wavering to the perfect pattern. May you find your divine. Oh, that's it. Oh my. We get to the next chapter a little later. Oh, but how delicious was that, right? Faith partnering. Oh, that touched me. Faith partnering is so important. Having that someone who believes in you. My person on this planet is Celeste Hall. There is no one on the planet that believes. There is nothing. No matter what's coming out my mouth, she never gives up on me. I never talk too much. It's never too much for her. And she's always saying she's my biggest cheerleader of the world. Her thing is, Crook, you know who you are? Crook. Look at you. Crook, crook, crook. Baby. She's my son's godmother. Everybody needs a CC. You have, I look at the 3 layers of relationships. You have your top layer, right? That partner, that it may be your mate. If you're not married, it may be a parent, but someone that is your life partner, that holds no jealousy, that holds no ill, only love and high wishes for every part of your life. So that top tier is that too, that prayer partner. Every creature God has made a pair. So I think of it as a prayer partner, huh? That second layer, that second tier of friendship, that 5, it's so beautiful. The Holy Spirit had me research Jesus' disciples. And how about his hand chosen that he chose himself? It was only 5. And if you notice, Matthew was one of them, right? The least likelies. Matthew. Why Matthew? Matthew's a thief. He's a tax thief. Yeah, See, Jesus, as an empath, he need time to separate and pray. He really ain't got time to be fighting folks and handling money and doing all this stuff. So all of his top 5 was those protectors of the flesh. See, because he got to be gone and here for the people. So he got to stay in line with the spirit, man. And if you ever been in the zone of prayer, praying for something, it's a selfish place. The zone is a selfish place because guess what? I got to zone out to hear God. I got to quiet myself to hear God. God ain't going to compete with the world and all this noise. You got to chill. You got to find your peace and find God. And everyone else outside that top 7 you have, baby, those are the people that come. Those are resources. Those are friends. Those are allies. Yes. But when things get dirty and grimy, baby, and you just got, where your resources go first, your top dogs, that top 7, that's where your time, money, resources, that's where they go first. Some people go and feed the outside first because they know that top team, they ain't going nowhere. Hey, notice when everything is gone, look at them top 5. They still there, loving on you. I love you. It's Monday. I'm wishing you a great week. I look forward to seeing you and giving you some more of this next chapter. The next chapter is really delicious also. I hope you enjoyed this. I love you. This was fun. Look forward to doing it again. See you soon. Be blessed.